welcome back to episode 2 of Reading with Sloan and Natalie. Natalie, you unfortunately cannot see, but I'm here, so let me show you a little trick. Oh, come on. You just speak. No, other way. Beautiful. Opie, come here. Good dogs. Okay, let's get to it. Back to Ivy and Bean. The first chapter of this episode. Ivy hatches a plan. Bean opened her eyes. They were in a corner of Ivy's backyard. There was a big rock on one side and a small tree on the other. Between them was a perfectly round puddle. "This is the secret spot?" asked Bean. She had expected something more secret-looking, like a cave. "Yes, they'll never find you here," said Ivy. "You can stay for as long as you want. I'll bring you food." "But I only need to stay until dinner time," Bean said. Ivy looked disappointed. "I thought you wanted to run away." "I do, but only until dinner." "Oh." There's Bean right there. Bean felt bad about not staying. "Wouldn't she get in trouble if your parents found out I was living here?" she asked. "They don't come out here much," Ivy said. "My mom's afraid of ticks." "You probably don't ever get in trouble anyway," said Bean, feeling glum. "I'm always in trouble." "I do too get in trouble," said Ivy. "No, you don't," Bean said. "You read books all the time. You can't get in trouble for reading books." Ivy said, "I will get in trouble, really huge trouble, if I do what I want to do. What I plan to do." There's Miss Ivy in her cool robe. Bean waited. "Well, what do you plan to do?" Ivy looked all around before she whispered, "Spells, magic, potions." "Really? You mean like a witch?" "Yes, well, not yet, but I'm going to be a witch," said Ivy. Her eyes were glowing. "I'm learning how." Bean looked at Ivy's black bathrobe. It was kind of dirty now, and some of the little pieces of paper had fallen off. Bean saw that the papers were cut into stars and moon shapes. Bean also saw that Ivy didn't know how to draw stars. Some of them had 4 points and others had only 3. The moons didn't look so good either. "Is that a witch's robe?" she asked. "Yeah," said Ivy. "Did you make it yourself?" asked Bean. "Yeah." "It's nice," said Bean politely. It didn't look like a witch's robe. It looked goofy. "I didn't know you could learn to be a witch. I thought you just had to be one." "That's what most people think," said Ivy. "But I'm learning. I probably know more than most born witches at my age. I just learned the spell that makes you invisible." "Wow," Bean could use that for sure. "Will you teach me? That would be great." That's the invisibility spell. "I haven't done yet," Ivy admitted. "You've got to have a dead frog." "Oh. It would be really mean to kill a frog." "Yeah. That's why I dug this pond," Ivy pointed to the puddle with her gold stick. "I'm hoping the frog will come here and die." Bean didn't mention that it looked like a puddle. "Wow," she said. "What's the stick for?" "That's my wand," said Ivy. Bean couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. "That's not a wand. That's just a stick painted gold." "It is too a wand." Now Ivy looked mad. "And you better watch out, or I'll use it on you." Bean stopped laughing. "Use it how?" "I'll cast the dancing spell on you. You won't be able to stop dancing for the rest of your life. Like this." She started jumping up and down, kicking her legs, and wagging her arms. "Could you really?" asked Bean. Ivy stopped dancing. "Maybe. I was just going to test it when you started yelling about being a ghost." "Who are you going to test it on?" asked Bean. Ivy's face turned red. "Nobody," she said. Bean could tell she was lying. "Come on, who?" Ivy's face got redder. "Come on, tell me," said Bean. Ivy looked at the dirt. "You," she said in a low voice. "Me?" yelped Bean. "What did I ever do to you?" "I'm sorry," said Ivy. She did look sorry. "That's okay," said Bean. There was a pause. "My mother keeps on saying what a nice girl you are," Ivy said. "She's always telling me I should play with you. It's driving me nuts." Bean could not believe it. "That's what Mother says about you. That's so funny. But you're not nice at all. You're a witch." Ivy giggled. "You're not very nice either. You were doing that ghost thing in the bush." Bean was embarrassed. "The part about the icy fingers was good," said Ivy. "What were you doing in there anyway?" Bean sat down on the rock. "I was waiting for Nancy. That's my sister. She's a total pain in the kazoo. I put $20 on a string and I was going to pull it out of her hand when she reached down to pick it up. Ivy nodded. Is that why she got mad at you? No, she got mad at me because it was her $20. Bean felt glum again. Ivy saw that Bean was worrying. Are you going to be in trouble? Yeah, probably. I'm not supposed to mess with her money, Bean thought. You don't have to be going back in time spell, do you? No, those are hard, said Ivy. She looked at her pond. I wish I had a dead frog. That would be good, Bean said. But wait a second. What about the dancing spell? Could you put it on Nancy? So she'll dance for the rest of her life? How is that going to get you out of trouble? Ivy asked. It's not, said Bean, but it would be really funny. This is her imagining Nancy having the dancing spell put on her. Next chapter. Beware. Once they had agreed to cast a spell on Nancy, Bean stared long and hard into Ivy's robe. Those little pieces of paper had to go. The first thing we have to do is make you look more like a witch, she said. Ivy looked down at her bathrobe. Why? Bean tried to explain without hurting Ivy's feelings. If you want other people to believe you're a witch, you have to look more witchy. But I don't care if other people believe me, said Ivy. Bean shook her head. What a weird kid. It'll make your spells better too. You've got to dress for success. Her mother said that all the time. It usually meant that Bean had to put on a clean shirt. Besides, it'll be fun. Do you have any face paint? Ivy nodded. In my room, upstairs. She pointed to a window. Is your mom inside? Bean asked. I guess, said Ivy. Is she going to tell my mom where I am? Grown-ups stuck together that way. Bean's dad said it was because they were all in a club together, but Bean felt pretty sure that he was making that up. Ivy tapped her wand against her hand. Maybe we should sneak in, just to be sure. That was fine with Bean. She loved sneaking. She loved face paint too. And she was really going to love watching Nancy kick her legs and wave her arms for the rest of her life. They went in the back door to the kitchen. Bean could hear Ivy's mom talking on the telephone somewhere in the house. Bless you. This is going to be easy, whispered Ivy. She's working, she yelled loudly. Hi, Mom. Can I have a banana? Hang on a second. Bean heard Ivy's mom say. Then, to Ivy, she said, Honey, I'm on the phone. Get your own banana. There was a sound of a door shutting. Okay, yelled Ivy. She smiled at Bean. See? Very tricky, thought Bean. Ivy was turning out to be a lot more interesting than she had expected. They walked softly past Ivy's mom's door and up the stairs. They were very quiet. At the top of the stairs, there was a door with a sign that said Beware in red glitter glue letters. That was Ivy's room. When she went in, Bean stood still and looked all around. This is way, way cool, she said. She had never seen a room like Ivy's. There were thick lines drawn on the floor, marking out 5 sections. Each section was like a different room. In one section, there was a small sofa on a rug and a bookcase stuffed with books. In another was a table covered with pens and paper and glitter glue and paint. Ivy's bed, with a canopy made of silver netting, was in another. A dresser and a folder screen painted with clouds were in the 4th section. The 5th section had nothing in it except dolls. Bean had never seen so many dolls in her life. There were regular, plastic kind of dolls. There were weird staring dolls with fancy costumes that were kept in glass cases at the toy store. There were stiff wooden dolls. There were china dolls, small ones, smaller ones, and tiny ones. There was one doll that was really a rock dressed in clothes. All the dolls were seated around a doll-sized blanket. Even the mushy baby dolls that couldn't sit by themselves had been propped up with blocks. In the middle of the blanket lay a Barbie doll, wrapped up in toilet paper. All the other dolls were watching her. Neat, said Bean. A mummy. Yeah, said Ivy. I'm going to build a pyramid to bury her in, as soon as I figure out how to. I know how, said Bean. Nancy made one out of sugar cubes last year. I can't believe your parents let you draw lines on your floor. It's only chalk, said Ivy. It comes off. I change the lines when I change the rooms. For now, I'm thinking about getting rid of the dressing room and making it into a kitchen. Is that one the dressing room? Asked Bean, pointing to the section with the dresser and the folding screen. Yeah, I like the screen, said Bean, but a kitchen is a little bit boring. Maybe you could turn it into a science lab for making potions. The screen could protect your secrets. A lab, said Ivy, thinking. A witch's lab? That's a pretty good idea. Bean looked over the table with the paint and glitter glue. What's that room called? She asked. That's my art studio, said Ivy. Cool, said Bean. Let's fix up your wand. In Ivy's art studio, there was plenty of sequins and jewels and streamers and pipe cleaners. First, they wrapped the wand with silver pipe cleaners. Then, Bean attached streamers to the end. Then, Ivy put some stickers on. Then, Bean put plain glue on the top and dipped it in a jar of glitter. She stuck a big red jewel on top. The wand dripped a little, but it looked much, much more magic than it had before. Now, said Bean, when that was done, let's work on your robe. What's the matter with it? Asked Ivy. All the stars and moons are coming off. See? Bean pointed. It will look better if we draw them on with sparkly markers. Ivy looked embarrassed. I can't draw stars very well. I can, said Bean. I'll teach you. Bean showed Ivy how to draw dots for the star points, then connect the dots with lines. Ivy practiced on paper for a while, and then they stretched the bathrobe over the table and began drawing. Ivy's stars were a little bent, but they had all 5 points. Soon the black robe was covered with silver stars and gold moons. Once that was done, Ivy got out her face paint. Bean couldn't believe it. The set had 24 colors. Wow, let's do green stripes, said Bean, or green dots. There were 3 different greens. No, witches are only green in movies, said Ivy. Real witches are just regular colored. But you've got all this great face paint, said Bean. We've got to use it for something. Ivy thought. You can put black around my eyes. Okay, but aren't real witches kind of pale because they go out mostly at night? Asked Bean. I guess, said Ivy. Kind of pale, but not green. My mom knew a guy who turned green. It was because he watched TV all the time, said Bean, but she could tell that she wasn't changing Ivy's mind. What if we did all white with black around your eyes, she suggested. Yeah, Ivy nodded, with a couple of blobs of red on my cheeks for blood. That's good, Bean agreed. Blood is good. So Bean carefully smeared white all over Ivy's face except her lips. Then she drew red drops down her cheeks. They didn't really look like blood. They looked more like red tears, but that was pretty scary too. Then Bean drew thick black lines around Ivy's eyes. Both girls thought that witches' hats were dorky, so they wrapped Ivy's head in a black scarf borrowed from her mother's dresser drawer. It looked almost like long black hair. Ivy stared at herself in the dressing room mirror. Wow, she said. I look really strange. And she did. And that concludes episode 2 of the Ivy and Bean reading with Sloan and Natalie. Thank you for coming.